Okay. How does depression affect students?
I think if students are depressed, then they probably don't have their mind on school, or they got their mind on probably negative thoughts, so their confidence is down. And if they're asked to try their best on something or stay on task, maybe that's more difficult for them to do if they are depressed. So affects student schoolwork negatively.
It makes them uninterested in doing schoolwork or in socializing in class or in being able to participate in class.
Students.
I think depression affects students probably differently depending on who it is. I've noticed some students, I guess, over the years that I feel probably deal with depression. A lot of times those students seem to not have motivation like other students, seem to just sit more in class and not want to participate or do things that the other students are doing. So definitely problematic for them and hard, something that would be hard to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
How does it affect other students around them?
It can affect them negatively if another student next to them is not interacting, not participating, being negative, crying. It can definitely affect the atmosphere of the class.
Others around them notice, and I think again every student is different. Some maybe want to help, some maybe want to bring them into their groups and help them with different activities, and some maybe just kind of leave them alone and tend to not include them in other things. So I just think it just depends on the group of kids.
Vibe you get, that kind of negative energy is like if you're around positive people, you tend to be a little more positive and smiley and giddy, whereas if people are kind of depressed or negative around you, you kind of tend to see the darker side of things and maybe aren't your happy-go-lucky self usually.
How does school affect depression?
Well, I think when it comes to like students' performance or something, if they're expecting to do well on a test and they do, then less likely to be depressed if they put in a good effort. But if a student's going to come in day in and day out and really not expect much and everything, probably a higher likelihood of being depressed.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I think school is a huge benefit to kids that are suffering from depression and anxiety. We have so many resources that can help kids deal with it, but just being around others versus being at home alone, I feel like has got to be helpful. So I would say school hopefully is a good place for kids to be when they're battling depression.
School can be a negative factor for some students who are depressed because everything's a struggle. But on the other hand, I also know students who come to school and they feel safe or welcome or successful in what they're doing, and it can actually help them when they are in the school and that learning atmosphere.
Is there resources in school to help?
I believe so. We have 4 counselors, we have a social worker. There's times I've taken students to the side and said, can I help you in any way? What's going on? Do you need to talk to somebody? So yes, I firmly believe we have resources in school, but sometimes students aren't willing to talk to somebody.
Teacher, any adult here, teacher, administrator, custodian, other staff member, counselor, we're all here to help. So if any student has anything that they want to talk about or just needs someone to listen, that's what we're all here for. So I think any adult or even any close friend in the school is able to help with stuff like that.
Yes. I really believe our social worker, Mrs. Remick, is fantastic, and I think she would be a great resource for kids dealing with depression, as well as our counselors, Mrs. Shy, Mrs. Fisher. They do such a good job. All at Mrs. Hauk, helping kids through a lot of these issues that they have, and I do feel like we have good resources with that. Even teachers in general, we have a lot of really good staff that I feel are warm and want to help. That's why they're here, and hopefully kids can connect with somebody, and find somebody, an adult, that can help them.
How do you think that the school could help more?
I really like, we've started that advisee group where we meet just with a smaller number of kids. I like things like that. Like those to me are beneficial times where where we just have more time to make interactions with kids. I think doing things like that more often would be a benefit. Just having more, I guess, one-on-one interaction with kids, I think would be helpful. And I don't know how to do that or how to make that happen, but that's an important part of building relationships and especially for me, like I want kids to feel comfortable to come to me if they have trouble or have problems with something and need help. So
Maybe more peer-to-peer interaction or mediation. And part of it comes back to that student being able to be willing to reach out to somebody who wants to help
I
them.
think there's always room for improvement in everything, so maybe we could have a few more signs around or make them more well-known, maybe have more advisory meetings. We've kind of been lacking in those lately this year, so I think there's always room to improve in anything you do, so just with anything in life, I think, yeah, could improve.
How does school affect depression?
School affects depression. I think it can be in two ways. Depression can go away like that if you let it in a school environment. I mean, last year, I wouldn't even say that I was depressed, but I learned so much because I let school teach me. Like, you have to let school, like, you see those quotes online all the time. You can't help somebody who doesn't want help. You can't get rid of depression if you don't want depression. You have to let school be able to help you. Or if you're not going to let it help you, then you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to end up doing a lot of bad decisions.
School can hurt depression because, well, you have to keep your attendance up and you might not want to go or do any of your homework, stuff like that.
It just makes it a lot very overwhelming and kind of turns into anxiety as well, and everything just starts to spiral out of control.
Do you know anyone with depression?
Yes, a lot of people.
I think a lot of people at the high school have it.
Okay, how has depression affected your life?
I feel like depression affects everyone's life incredibly differently because when you're talking about depression, what it kind of does to, as a person of what I have experienced with depression, it kind of cuts you off and puts your head in a little bubble and makes you a selfless person, but you're only selfless to yourself. You don't really talk to anybody else about it, and you feel like you're better off being by yourself and nobody is really worth your time, and it kind of just cuts you off from that sort of thing, and it leaves everyone very disconnected. But a lot of people, I don't think, realize how many other people go through depression, how many people that you are very close with go to depression. I mean, maybe even parents. I mean, we don't really suspect that our parents could be depressed because we hold them in such a glorious light, but it's kind of the sad reality when you have to consider who is affected by depression and how big of a thing it is.
Yes.